Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf. I'm joined by Riley Fessler. We go over the news. We try to provide some perspectives on it. Riley, why don't you kick us off?
Ground assault on Gaza City, declaring the city is burning as Palestinians described the most intense bombardment in 2 years. The assault was carried out despite warnings from some Israeli military commanders and threats of sanctions from European leaders, though the U.S. offered support. The attack has resulted in a humanitarian crisis, with dozens killed, people trapped under rubble, and thousands fleeing the city, while a UN commission has accused Israel of committing genocide. The offensive has also raised concerns about the fate of remaining hostages held by Hamas and has led to protests from their families.
Some of you may listen to stories like this and come to understand how the atrocities of the past could happen without any seeming intervention from the world. So, surely you've been involved in conversations where somebody says, well, how could the Holocaust have happened? Or how could the Armenian genocide have happened? Or how could the killing fields have happened? Or how could, well, here's the thing. Throughout history, for every generation, often multiple times in a decade, whether it's in Congo or whether it's in the center of Europe, or whether it's in places like Gaza, man's inhumanity to man manifests itself in the form of mass killing. And the world is inert, inured to it. They evaluate it not in terms of any moral obligations they may have. They evaluate it in terms of their self-interest, those involved in countries who could stop it, those who have the power to stop it. And when their self-interests say, look away, don't do anything, or even aid what's going on, that's what happens. And, we've seen over the course of the past couple of years, perhaps 65,000, perhaps 100,000 Palestinians, the vast, vast, vast majority of them innocent, about half of them women and children, being slaughtered. And the reaction, when it is very apparent that the Israelis intend to slaughter more, that they intend to, for political reasons that don't bring any real benefit to Israel in terms of national security or stability, continue with war crimes, with genocide. The reaction is a shrug from the planet Earth. More will die, and then we'll move on to the next place like this. Then we will encounter this again someplace else, unless some governments recognize that they have a moral and ethical obligation and that it is in their self-interest to stand up and stop it. And there have been times when you thought global governance was heading in that direction. Unfortunately, this is not one of those times. This is a time when the institutions that have been designed to contain this kind of abuse are actually being weakened and gutted. And tragically, from the perspective of Americans, the weakening and gutting is being led by the administration in Washington and is being led by Democrats and Republicans in the administration in Washington. This is a bipartisan stain on the history and values and ideals and identity of the United States. And we are going to need big change in leadership from both parties in order to try to reclaim any role as a moral force in the world.
Donald Trump filed a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times, accusing the publication of being a, quote, mouthpiece of the Democratic Party, end quote, and of engaging in a years-long campaign of defamatory and false reporting against him. The lawsuit filed in Florida names the newspaper, 4 of its reporters, and the publisher of a book written by 2 of the reporters, claiming the reporting has damaged Trump's brand and business interests. Trump alleges that the publication's actions have caused billions of dollars in reputational and financial harm. This lawsuit is the latest in a series of legal actions Trump has taken against various media companies he claims have been unfriendly and defamatory.
Few things about this. One, of course, it seems frivolous to the point of being idiotic. Trump is a public figure. The laws about public figures are very clear. And he's not going to go to trial with this because he doesn't want to get into a discovery process where the New York Times, which actually documents all of its stories, will be able to prove that what they wrote about him was true. So why do it? Well, there are a couple reasons to do it. One reason is that it intimidates other media outlets. It makes them think, we don't have the deep pockets of the New York Times. We can't go and fight this fight. We can't engage with Trump. So it silences the opposition. Trump's sense that it silences the opposition is, of course, shored up by the fact that places like CBS and ABC have cut deals with him. They have said, okay, we'll write you a check. Please leave us alone. So it's worked for him in the past. Those things are bad. I think what's even more pernicious about this, however, is that this is part of a general effort ongoing by Trump, by the people around Trump, by MAGA world in general, that links into the Charlie Kirk murder, which is to cast anyone who is critical of Trump as a lawbreaker, as a criminal, as it's to make free expression, a thing of the past in the United States, and to enable them to do what Trump has promised to do over the weekend. And that is crack down on, quote, liberal organizations, as if they posed a threat, as if he had the power to do it, as if it was not unconstitutional to do it. This is how fascism works. It says, if you don't embrace our view, you are damaging our country. That creates urgency for the government to act and to silence you. And so, yes, this is absurd. Yes, this is a claim for attention, but it's worked in the past. It has effects beyond what take place in the court, and it opens the door to far more dangerous actions by the Trump administration against what the Trump administration perceives as its critics.
Following the killing of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk, Vice President J.D. Vance has called for people celebrating his death to be held accountable, including by having their employers informed. Several individuals, including a Secret Service employee, professors, and others, have been fired or suspended for their social media posts regarding the death. The firings have sparked a debate over free speech and employee protections, with many arguing that the terminations are a form of cancel culture and political retaliation. Despite these criticisms, legal experts note that private companies in the U.S. generally have the right to fire employees for any reason under at-will employment laws.
They have the right, perhaps, but they don't have the moral authority to do it, and they are not thinking about what the consequences of this are, because today it is this story, and tomorrow there will be another, and with each one of these stories and each one of these campaigns by the Trump administration, what are you going to get? Fewer rights, less ability to speak out, less ability to challenge them, less ability to advance the interests of the victims of their policies, whether they're poor people or they are women or they are people of color or they are just simply people that the Trump administration does not agree with. This week, we are going to hear this over and over again. I mentioned it with regard to the last story, but they are seeking to criminalize opposing political views, as strongmen do in other countries, so-called strongmen. These are authoritarians. These are would-be or actual dictators. And that's what we're going through here. And if you look at the cases of the people who have been fired, in many cases, what those people have done is not, quote, celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk. What they have done is quoted Charlie Kirk. They have simply restated what he said in the case of Karen Adia, fired yesterday or the other day by the Washington Post. What she did was she quoted something Charlie Kirk said, in which he said that Black women did not have the intellectual capacity to be taken seriously. That's not defamatory. That's a fact. And there are plenty of facts like that that can be presented as the world comes to its conclusions. And remember, we're a democracy. People are entitled to have different points of views. People are expected to have different points of views. In fact, the whole idea behind the system is that differing points of views enrich our political process. That's theoretically what people on the right celebrate about Charlie Kirk. But of course, Charlie Kirk was never about free speech. He intimidated his opponents. He condemned his opponents. He celebrated violence against his opponents. And as a result, he sought to chill free speech. When he talked about, wanting open expression, it was not about having more views or embracing other ideas. It was wanting a place on the stage for himself so that he could advance right-wing views like these that would, in essence, shift the idea of cancel culture and start canceling liberals, start canceling Democrats, start canceling people who believed in women's reproductive freedom, start canceling people who believed in science and the science of vaccines and the science of climate change. That's what they want to get rid of because they realize it undermines them politically. It also makes them feel uncomfortable about their positions, which are not fact-based. So that's the story of the week. The story of the week is not the funeral of Charlie Kirk or who Charlie Kirk was. The story of the week is how the extreme right, MAGA world, Trump, Vance, Rubio, and others are using this incident to suppress opposition, suppress free speech, and make this country less of a democracy.
The United States added Colombia to its list of nations failing to cooperate in the drug war for the first time in nearly 30 years, a decision that reflects a surge in cocaine production and strained relations between the two countries. While the U.S. issued a waiver to prevent major aid cuts, the move is seen as a significant rebuke to a traditional ally. Colombian President Gustavo Petro criticized the decision, citing the sacrifices his country has made in the fight against drugs. The designation is based on a decrease in manual coca eradication under Petro's leadership and his criticism of U.S. anti-drug policies, even though drug seizures have increased.
Look, U.S. anti-drug policies are in the news a lot these days. Why? Because they're not really anti-drug policies. They're policies designed to intimidate people from coming into the United States and to flex the muscles of this administration. Another vessel on the high seas was destroyed and sunk again without any kind of due process by the Trump administration this week. The other thing, of course, we always fail to recognize in these attacks, and they've threatened far worse. Remember, it's not just how we classify Colombia. They've talked about invading Venezuela. They've talked about sending in the military into Mexico to go after cartels. The reason that they are condemned for this is, of course, these are the acts of an aggressor, a bully in a country that rejects international law. But they're also the acts of a country that is not doing anything to undermine or contain demand for drugs here in the United States. We are the country that, the reason people sell drugs here is that people buy drugs here. And we always go and blame the producing countries, but we don't deal with the problem here at home. And of course, one of the big parts of the problem here at home is that we are the world's leading manufacturer of weapons. And a lot of those weapons go back to those drug cartels. And a lot of those countries are saying, hey, what about controlling the flow of weapons of war into our countries? We, of course, will not do that because the administration is snugly in bed with the gun lobby. And so we don't deal with our role in this crisis either. So what we're doing is illegal from a foreign policy point of view. It's damaging to our alliances. It doesn't help the war on drugs. And we are not undertaking to deal with the real problems here in the United States.
Senate Republicans confirmed Stephen Miran, a top economic advisor to President Trump, to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. The move was met with strong opposition from Democrats who feared his close ties to the White House would compromise the central bank's independence. Miran's confirmation came just as the Fed was set to meet to discuss lowering interest rates, a move that aligns with Trump's public criticism of the bank's policies. Critics also expressed concern over Miran's plan to take a leave of absence from his White House position, a decision he previously opposed for others.
Yeah, this is really dangerous, and the markets are going to, show their disdain for it. But the reality is that for the first time in 90 years, somebody is, being appointed to a job at the Federal Reserve that, works at the White House, is close to the president, is an advisor to the president. And it's part of the president's plan to make the Fed less independent. Part of the plan to end what has been one of the most successful economic policies in the world, that of the United States, having an independent central bank, which made us a reliable partner for countries to deal with around the world, which made the US dollar the world's reserve currency. This will undermine the US dollar as a reserve currency. Who benefits from that? Well, of course, China benefits from that. Perhaps Trump will benefit in the short term, he thinks, if the Fed lowers interest rates and it sort of artificially gooses the U.S. economy, although I think the market reaction is going to surprise him and it's going to be very damaging. But you know who else benefits from that? People in the crypto biz. People who are trying to, capitalize on new technologies to make money in new ways, where having reliable central banks and stable U.S. currency is not necessarily seen as an advantage. Who's in that business? Trump's family, the families of people in his administration. So this is bad economic policy. It's also corrupt economic policy. It's bad news. Anyway, Riley, this is a disheartening group of stories, and I urge you to go out there and find something better for tomorrow.
I'll certainly do my best.
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks, for to come down so hard on the news today, but this is the news today. We'll be back here with more tomorrow, as each and every day, and all of our other podcasts will be there out on the DSR network for you, and we encourage you to subscribe to them, listen to them, and then when you see they have some value, support us by becoming a member here at the DSR network. Doesn't cost much, and it helps make independent voices in media stronger, which we need, because legacy media, mainstream media, is failing at just a stunning rate, a rate I never, ever would have expected. Anyway, we'll be here until we're not, until they don't let us be here anymore. But for now, our plan is to be here. Until then, thanks a lot, Riley. Thanks, everybody. And Minnow will be back tomorrow. And bye-bye.